Hello, Weirlings, it's your friendly neighborhood lizard lady. This is part of the Staircase series and a standalone video, which means you can listen to this without having to listen to the rest of the series. First of all, I'm not an expert. I'm self-taught from years of personal hyperfixation since my pre-teens. That means the early 2000s, before some of you were even born. Honestly, I should have known. Even back then, I was neurodivergent. AUDHD specifically. I'm not ashamed. But like most AFAB individuals of my generation, and older, we didn't get the diagnosis. Now I'm starting to regulate, not just self-regulate, which is very helpful. But that's why I go on tangents. I wanted to go to college to be a crime scene investigator, but I didn't want to get stuck with student loan debt, and my mother and stepfather weren't going to pay for it. Instead, I read books, watch shows, listen to podcasts, probably like a lot of you. I'm self-taught in forensics, criminology, psychology, anthropology, sociology, archaeology, theology, folklore, true crime, the paranormal, etc. I don't know everything, and I admit it. But I know enough to know what I don't know, and then look stuff up. If any of you are fans of Emma, Becky, and Tosh from the Spine Chillers and Serial Killers podcast, I won't say the name they use on there, because I'm going under a pen name, but I'm the one they ask questions of sometimes during the recording, and as long as I'm caught up, I answer. And if I don't know the answer, if I'm not sure, I look it up. However, doing my own content keeps me from bugging them when I get hyper-focused. If you feel like I've left something out, feel free to explore other sources, including the miniseries The Staircase starring Colin Firth as Michael Peterson and Toni Collette as Kathleen Peterson. Both are great actors. Let's get into it. Kathleen Hunt was born February 21st, 1953, in Greensboro, North Carolina. She was an accomplished engineer and was the first female student accepted into Duke University's School of Engineering, and the first high school student allowed to take advanced Latin classes at Franklin and Marshall College. She was also published in the Who's Who book of American high school students. That is the kind of woman to look up to. In 1989, Kathleen Atwater, a successful business executive at Nortel, allowed Michael Peterson, and from what I infer from the information I have, his 4 children, Clayton and Todd, who he had with his first wife, Patricia Sue, and Margaret and Martha, Elizabeth Ratliff's daughters, who Michael adopted after Elizabeth's death, to move into her home. Michael and Patricia divorced in 1987. At that time, Clayton and Todd lived with Patricia. Margaret and Martha stayed with Michael when he moved to Durham, North Carolina. Todd and Clayton then joined Michael, Margaret, and Martha around the time he moved in with Kathleen, hence my inference. Michael and Kathleen married in 1997. Kathleen's daughter, Caitlin, rounded out the blended Brady Bunch-style family. So here's what the official case says. On December 9th, 2001, Michael Peterson calls 911. He found his wife Kathleen unconscious at the bottom of the staircase in their home in the Forest Hills neighborhood of Durham, North Carolina. At the time of her autopsy, Kathleen's blood alcohol level was 0.07%, which is below the legal limit of 0.08% in most states. Of course, I'm looking at this under a lens of a U.S. citizen, which in this case works since North Carolina is a U.S. state. The levels of alcohol in Kathleen's urine was 0.11%. What does that tell us? Well, it confirms Michael's story that she had been drinking throughout the night. From what I found, Michael was not intoxicated, and tells us that at one point she was well above the legal limit and intoxicated, not tipsy. Not only had she been drinking alcohol, but she had also consumed 5 to 10 milligrams of Valium. So what does that mean, along with alcohol? I'm glad you asked. Valium, diazepam, is a benzodiazepine. That means that it depresses the central nervous system and can intensify the effects of alcohol, such as impaired coordination, slowed reflexes, and even confusion. With that in mind, we have to look at Kathleen's blood alcohol level slightly differently. Earlier in the night, she had been more intoxicated than at the time of her death. With the Valium on top of that, she was also more impaired than someone with the same body composition, weight, height, age, metabolism, the usual factors that determine intoxication. I bring this up not to shame Kathleen, but to put her physical state into perspective. I am of legal drinking age. I have been tipsy, intoxicated, and blackout drunk. I have also used prescription and over-the-counter painkillers, only as prescribed or instructed. As an adult, Kathleen had every right to drink alcohol. It is recommended to not take medications like Valium with alcohol, because of the effects they can have on the body. That being said, she had every right to make her own choices on what she consumed. We should also note that Kathleen was wearing flip-flops. I don't know about you, but I hate flip-flops. Not just because the string goes between your toes, that's annoying, yes, but because I'm a klutz. I need a backing for my shoes or else I can't walk properly because I feel like I'm going to just step out of them. I wear my Crocs with a strap behind my ankle. Yes, I wear Crocs. They are surprisingly comfortable, even though they are ugly. But they are rainbow tie-dye, so that's cool. And they have acupressure knobs on the soles, which help my back. Right now, one of the straps is hot glued in place because Bram absolutely loves to flat tire me when we are walking outside. So why are Kathleen's flip-flops so important? I love the questions you ask, weirdlings. Flip-flops are slippery. They offer little support, which makes a short fall on the stairs more likely to cause serious injury. We'll talk about that shortly. Let's talk about the rest of the autopsy. Kathleen sustained multiple injuries that were determined to be severe. The injuries included a fracture of the superior cornu of the left thyroid cartilage, 7 lacerations to the top and back of her head that were deemed to be consistent with blows from a blunt object. It is believed that she died from blood loss after 90 minutes to 2 hours. First, let's talk about the superior cornu of the left thyroid cartilage. What does that even mean? Well, the thyroid cartilage is the largest cartilage in your voice box, your larynx. The superior cornu is one of 2 little horn-shaped projections at the top corners of the thyroid cartilage. So, a fracture of the superior cornu of the left thyroid cartilage simply means one of the small horn extensions at the top left part of her voice box was broken. Such injuries can be caused by different factors: strangulation, blunt neck trauma, or a bad fall where the neck and or throat area is hit. It's not a common injury that just happens, so when it's seen, it gets attention. For all of my true crime weirdlings, don't get the superior cornu confused with the hyoid bone. The hyoid bone, for those of you who don't know, is a small U-shaped bone located in the throat just above the voice box. It is most commonly known to be broken during manual strangulation, though it can sometimes break due to other neck trauma. Especially in older individuals, when someone gets older, their bones become more brittle. Breakage typically occurs when direct force is applied to the upper neck. That being said, we can confirm that Kathleen had trauma to the left top part of her throat, just below where the jaw hinges. So far, no confirmation of murder, just trauma. Next, 7 lacerations to the top and back of her head, speculated to be consistent with blows from a blunt object. We will come back to that. The cause of death, because those other factors are survivable, was massive blood loss over the course of possibly 90 minutes to 2 hours. We'll get into where that time frame comes from. So, we have injuries and cause of death. Let's get into a little more detail. The crime scene, the Petersons' residence in Durham, North Carolina. Kathleen was found at the bottom of a staircase inside the home. She was unresponsive and covered in blood. Blood was found smeared on the back of the front door, suggesting it had been wiped there, like, for example, on someone's hand and then transferred to the door. Physical evidence that few talk about, a wood splinter and feather were found on Kathleen's body, which is where the owl theory first came from. The cause of death, as determined by the medical examiner, was blunt force trauma to the head and neck. The injuries, 7 deep cuts, were observed on her scalp, the 7 lacerations. There were bruises on her face and arm, signs of struggle, including hair clenched in her fists and blood under her fingernails. The toxicology report proved that she was impaired at the time of her death. The blood under Kathleen's nails was tested, yet the DNA results are not public. Which means to me that it was her own blood. If it was Michael's, the prosecution would have repeated it each chance they got. With it being Kathleen's blood, it would indicate a defensive reaction, scratching herself, or bracing for a fall. Michael claimed that he had been outside by the pool and came in to find Kathleen at the foot of the stairs. The 911 call was made at 2:40 a.m. The hair in Kathleen's hands was her own, suggesting that she was grabbing at her head or trying to brace herself during the fall, rather than struggling with someone. Let's look at some other factors that get mentioned when this case is reported on. At first, Kathleen's family, namely her daughter Caitlin, and her sister Candace, both publicly supported Michael and proclaimed his innocence. Why did they change their minds? Well, two reasons. One was the autopsy report, which I admit can be damning, especially depending on who explains the injuries to you. The other reason, which was not as understandable to me, why they turned on him, Michael's sexuality came out. He identified, at least at the time, sexuality is a spectrum. You could change your mind and find yourself at your pace. I, myself, am bisexual or pansexual, depending on how I feel at the time. It's more about the person than the equipment. That being said, I'm a cis woman married to a cis man, in a heterosexual relationship. That does not erase my bisexuality, that does not erase my attraction, nor does it erase or invalidate my relationship with my husband. Think about it this way. If you are attracted to just one gender, and you are in a committed, monogamous relationship, do you never, ever feel an attraction of any kind to someone who isn't your partner? If you said yes, then it's the same thing for people who are attracted to multiple genders. Just because I'm attracted to more than one gender does not mean that I am unhappy in my marriage, only straight, with my husband, or that I will have an affair with someone just because of my attraction. Theo and I have been together for 16 years, married for almost 11, and both faithful. My attraction, my sexuality is valid, and so is Michael's. Now, we have to remember this was 2001. Back then, it was a big deal to be anything but cis and straight. Anything else was given massive side-eye. Before we leave, I want to talk about staircases. The most hazardous types of staircases, we don't have stats, but we have what designers and safety pros agree on. Narrow, overly steep, serpent staircases, common in older Victorian homes, can trip people easily. Tight spiral staircases that don't meet the minimum tread width, 26 inches, are treacherous without solid grip or space. Floating or railless stairs might look stunning, but lacking handrails makes them major death traps. Glass or patterned stairs, like optical illusion carpets, disorient users, increasing fall risk. Alternating tread, witch stairs, space-saving efficiency, but not safe for seniors, kids, or people with balance issues. All that being said, any staircase that sacrifices grip, safety, or spatial clarity for aesthetics or space will raise the danger level dramatically. Let's talk statistics. There are around 1 million annual stair-related injuries in the U.S., around 12,000 deaths annually from stair-related accidents in the U.S., around 55% of staircase injuries include fracture to limbs or the pelvis. Around 65% of staircase injuries include head injuries or concussions. More than 22,000 hospitalizations from falls on a staircase per year. Seniors over 65 years old, Kathleen was 48, account for around 40% of injuries, 5 times higher risk of serious injury. The most common injuries in a staircase fall are broken bone, spinal injuries, head trauma, lacerations, and soft tissue damage. Now, I just had to find the information for Ivana Trump's fall down the stairs. I'm not saying she was murdered, or that there are boxes of documents buried with her that cannot be exhumed due to New Jersey law. But I'm not saying that. It's all sus to me. Who would make a golf course a cemetery without ulterior motives? On July 14, 2022, Ivana was 73 years old. According to the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, she fell down the spiral staircase in her Upper East Side Manhattan townhouse. Now, when I hear spiral staircase, I think corkscrew. But I've seen pictures. It's more of a gradual curve, like driving up a mountain, than a pigtail. Her cause of death was determined to be caused by blunt force injuries to her torso and was ruled an accident. Ivana's longtime friend, Nikki Haskell, had warned Ivana about her stairs being treacherous. Nikki said after Ivana's death, "I was always concerned about her being on that staircase. The townhouse, which Ivana had purchased after her divorce from Donald Trump, is 6 stories, featuring luxury amenities, including a crystal chandelier and a Versailles-inspired dining room. Ivana's death just proves the significant risks associated with spiral staircases, especially for older adults. These staircases are so hazardous due to their narrow treads, steep inclines, and lack of visibility, which can lead to serious falls. The staircase in the Peterson house was narrow, with walls on each side, and a turn at the bottom with a wall. I personally have actually fallen down a nearly identical staircase. I was 5 at the time, and ricocheted off the walls like a pinball. Initially, Michael claimed that Kathleen had fallen down the stairs after drinking and possibly taking Valium. The findings of the autopsy contradicted the accidental fall theory, indicating severe head and neck trauma, consistent with an intentional assault, according to the medical examiner. Blood spatter analysis and other forensic evidence suggested a violent altercation rather than a simple fall. The medical examiner believed that the lacerations were caused by a custom-made fireplace poker, known as a blowpoke. Initially, the blowpoke was missing, but later found in the Petersons' garage. I will go into these details in the video on Michael's trial. The next video, to keep this one from being too long, will be about neck injuries. Believe me, it's interesting. I personally think that Kathleen fell on the stairs instead of down the stairs, and I will be giving you a possible explanation for all that effing blood. One time, Theo was taking a soak. He got too hot, got up, and was going to splash some water on his face. I was downstairs, I heard a thud, and I sent him a text asking if everything was okay. I didn't get a response right away. When I did, he asked me to come upstairs, so I came right up. He was lying on the bedroom floor. I thought he just got a little dehydrated and needed to lie down. It's happened before. He had fallen, after he passed out, and hit his head on the wall. The thud I heard was him falling on his tailbone. He was only out for a few minutes, but there was blood on the floor, and his head was bleeding. It bled for hours. I looked at the wound after he took a shower, and it was still bleeding. Then the next day it had stopped bleeding and had scabbed over. He had a 1 to 2 inch diagonal slice in the back of his head, close to his left ear. He's tall, 6 foot 4 inches, but he only fell about 3 feet. The whole 6 feet would have been even worse. I wouldn't be telling you this if he wasn't okay. Hell, I wouldn't even be recording. But head wounds, even small scratches, bleed a lot. I get nosebleeds sometimes, and they can be like bloody geysers for 15 to 20 minutes. So let's keep all of that in mind when considering Kathleen's injuries. Sleep well, Weirdlings, and be careful on staircases.